This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a very, very special guest. His influence on the fantasy sports industry over the past few decades has been extraordinary. From Footballguys, it is football guy himself. It's Joe Bryant. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, buddy. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. We've only been trying to do this for like 2 years, right? So, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So it's an honor to have you on here. Your influence on me and so many people in the fantasy space is immeasurable. So it's
Thank you,
a privilege to have you on here. For listeners and viewers that for some reason might be unaware of Footballguys, what's going on at Footballguys? And also it's draft season. It is draft season. People are ready to win those leagues. So what does Footballguys offer for people that want to, get a subscription and dive in and win those leagues this year?
Well, thank you, Kevin. And really, this may be a bigger conversation we have in a second about just, the company as a whole and bringing value. But it's really that we try to help people have more fun and win their league. That's really what it boils down to. And it could be several different things. At the basic level, it's stuff like cheat sheets and who to start each week and drafting tools. But in a bigger picture is like how to have more fun with it, how to have, obviously that's right in your wheelhouse of commissioning stuff and leagues and all that. But we just try to be the total package for how we can help you have more fun and win. And obviously it's more fun when you win. So that's first and foremost what we're doing. But the biggest thing we do is our rank. We do something unique in the industry, and that will customize rankings to your situation. So as you know, with a million different ways to play, when you set up a draft ranking, it's, the same projections, the same stat projections for a player will put them with radically different value based on how you play. If you're in a super flex league with two starting quarterbacks, that's going to, put the value up higher on quarterbacks. If you're in a PPR league and you've got a player that catches a ton, his value changes. So instead of generic cheat sheets, which there's a ton out there, we do specific cheat sheets to your league. And that's been the big difference. And then our drafting tools, the Draft Dominator, we think still is the best out there for anything. It's so powerful. It'll dynamically adjust values as your draft unfolds. And to me, it's the easiest way to have a great year is to have a great draft. And we do all we can to help there.
For sure. And then obviously dominating that draft, you're right. It's an important part of the puzzle. Obviously,
that's right.
You're going to provide support throughout the season when it comes to, content and getting people through the season for sure. But that draft is a great place to start. Let's talk a little bit about what's new at Footballguys this year. Obviously, you've got the Footballguys Bowl. Talk to me about what inspired that and what you're looking to do with that contest.
That you are good friends with Scott Fish, as am I, and it's been fun to see him every year, bring a bunch of folks together in a big, kind of mega tournament. And we had, so it's really it's the community thing. It's for Footballguys subscribers. And it's a mega tournament organized pretty much the same way, you would think. It's 12-team league. So you have that feel of a home league, but then it narrows itself down towards the end of the, end of the season when you get in the playoffs and all the teams come together for a tournament. But so Joey Wright, and you love Joey as much as I do, and shout out to Joey, but we've talked about this all last year, and it's such a big undertaking because, believe it or not, so much of it is still manual. It's not, you would think you could drop it all in and it would self-sort and organize, and it's just not that way. Joey literally sent out invites to almost 2,000 teams to make this happen, and organized it and set the specifics and put all that in. It's hosted on Sleeper, which we think is a fantastic platform. So it's fun, but the idea is it's furthering and encouraging that Footballguys community, which for us is the fantasy football community is just really what it's about.
That's what I was going to say. Obviously, for years and years, Footballguys has been about that community. So it's so cool to have, a community subscription-based tournament where people can compete. I just had a draft just yesterday morning, and it was a great group of people excited to get that going. So yeah, shout out to Joey Wright. What an effort he's put in to make that happen. And of all people, he is Mr. Community. So I love Joey, and I love everything you guys are doing with that. Also, something new is you brought in Mauricio Gutierrez, right? To hit a different audience in fantasy. Talk to me a little bit about that.
That's right. Mauricio is one of our longtime friends, and I've known him. I say long time for 3 or 4 years, I guess. I've seen him in conferences and been around him. He just always struck me as just a top-notch person. His wife is awesome too. But so it's like, and it would just always well, honestly, Kevin, the way you and I started working together was similar to that. I didn't have any master plan. Like, hey, this is this specific role I need or a specific feature that I need done, and let me go out and find the right person. We've always kind of operated a little bit reverse in that we find a person that we think's awesome, bring them in, and then what they wind up doing sort of figures itself out from there. So that was my thinking with Mauricio, and he's so great. He's already done. You've seen his first article last week, but it's all in Spanish. Spanish content. He is a huge deal in Mexico, and really not just Mexico, it's Spanish speaking. There's obviously a ton of Spanish speaking, fans in the U.S. as well. And we could, I mean, it's super easy to translate something into another language, but it just felt more authentic for us that let's bring Mauricio and let him go from, pull it that way. And the second he started talking about Muchachos de Football, I was like, this is going to be fun. So yeah, I'm really excited about what he's going to get to do this year.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I think that yeah, you're right. His influence in Spanish speaking population is huge, but he's also a huge influence within the states.
Right.
People really do enjoy his presence. He's a
Right.
wonderful person. His wife is amazing. You're right, and it's just really cool to think about kind of expanding the consumer base, because there's a lot of people out there that in different countries, they may not speak English but love
Right.
football, American
Right.
football,
Right.
and they love the game. There's so much potential to expand the game of fantasy football. And how much has that impacted your vision with it, with bringing Mauricio on?
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And we won't stop there, I don't think. I mean, there's a lot of you see it with the league, right? I mean, going to Europe and the other places they're going. And I think it makes total sense for us. We go where they go, and it seems like just a natural progression.
I love it. No, that's awesome. Now, you can't be in this business without having a passion for sports. Where did it all begin for you? We'll roll back just a few years when it comes
Yeah,
to
a few years, Kevin. You're old as
you're
me. It's a lot of years. Yeah, I grew up loving sports, and that was just like a lot of kids, and being a sports fan was very different. When I was 10 years old in 1974, and so you basically watched what you saw the Steelers and the Cowboys and the teams that were on the national markets. That got that kind of stuff, and so grew up with that. Actually, in the college years, became super involved with fantasy baseball. That was really my introduction to fantasy sports, with the rotisserie baseball. Back when some of y'all may remember the old days, where you had they published a book, a literal paperback book each year that had the salaries in it. It was all salary cap stuff. And grew up, cut my teeth playing that, and just that's what drew me into it. And then mid '90s, and then the baseball strike in '94, and I was like, well, what else? I love NFL football, but there wasn't really much of a market yet, or much of a following for fantasy sports there. So we were pretty much right in the early stages of. Now, there were leagues going back. You can find them back into the '60s and '70s, but it wasn't really very popular until I started in the '90s and the 2000s. So that's what got me started. And then for how Footballguys got started, like a lot of things, I wanted something that didn't exist, and so I just made it for myself. And I wanted more information, more advice, more how to play, and that type of content. And there just really wasn't much out there. And that was about 97, 98, and I could see the internet starting to happen. And everything then had always been printed or radio, but for us, it was like, here's a magazine that has a free printing press, effectively, with the internet. And so that it didn't take long to figure out that there might be a business there of, if you don't have to pay for each additional copy or of a magazine or a book, this could be pretty interesting. So that's when we started. We actually started in 2000, David Dodds and I, my partner, and it's been fun. It's funny to think about it that long. It's our 25th year now, and the world has changed quite a bit. But I don't know. It's funny. We talked the other day about this. Business principles really haven't changed that. Everyone wants to say the internet changed everything. Well, it didn't really change everything. It changed the vehicle for delivering the content. The same way that radio changed, the newsprint, and TV changed radio. Here's just a faster, way more ubiquitous way, or more comprehensive way to get this information out. It used to be, you'd wait 2 days for news. Now everyone in your league has the latest breaking news in 30 seconds after it happens. But so our thing was, you still have to bring value. I mean, how can you bring value to that customer? And that's been, so even though that's changed quite a bit, it really hasn't changed much at all in that respect.
Well, but the coolest thing with Football Guys is that, you've adapted and evolved over time, where some companies, when there's change, around them, they don't adapt. And it's amazing. We'll talk a little bit more about, the evolution of Football Guys, and the old versus the new, new creators and everything. But it's very commendable to think about, you've been able to adapt and grow, and the best is still yet to come. So
we think so. Yeah, we think we're far from having produced our best stuff yet.
And we've gone from magazines, right, to
buddy, yeah,
right,
nice. Right? You need to put that in a glass case. That's a good one.
For sure.
That's fun.
But so back to just discovering fantasy sports. What was it that hooked you initially? What was it about fantasy sports?
I think it's two things, Kevin. It's the first of that you think you're smarter than the general manager of your favorite team, right? You could see that guy coming a mile away out of college. You knew that he was going to be great, or you knew that Heath Schuler was going to be a bust, or you knew, you just knew these things, and everyone thinks they know. And so here's a real live way to try and do. Now, personally, I think most general managers are incredibly, talented, smart, capable people. And it's easy to armchair that, but the idea is you get to, right? So like, here's a way, the concept of it just seems so fun, of like, I can identify talent. I can value this player better than the general manager, the team owner can, the real NFL team owner, and let me show you how to do that. The second part of it, which I think really is the bigger part for me, is the camaraderie. It's you and 9 buddies or 11 buddies or however many are in your league, that just get to stay together. I hear it, you hear it too, but almost daily now, it seems I'm talking to somebody and they'll tell me their draft is next week. And so how does tell me about your league? And it's always these 8 friends from high school, or these 8 friends from college, or these 8 friends from work or church or whatever it is. And a lot of times they don't even live in the same area anymore. They all moved to different places. Their lives might be very different than they were when the league started, but this league is kind of the glue that holds them together. And a lot of them can't, someone, you hear it said, how's it go? They say the league entry fee is really just payment for the group chat,
Yeah.
and there's that's kind of funny, but there's a deeper, real serious thing in that. And in this day and age, I feel like we need that way more than ever. We have fewer and fewer places. It feels, although we're more connected than ever in history, I do feel like sometimes we're more disconnected than ever. And if you can have something like fantasy football to bring that together, it sounds dramatic, like fantasy football is going to save the world, right? And I don't know that, but it doesn't hurt. It's nice. It's nice to have that vehicle that brings people together. So that's, to me, that's the real, that I instantly could see it. And that, credit to Daniel Okren and those guys that wrote that rotisserie baseball book years ago. That was really what it was for them. It was like, it's all, they were doing a dynasty league without even knowing it, but you kept it. They didn't call it dynasty. It was just how you played. But every year you carried salaries over, and every year you'd stay together, and you had a big celebration with for the league champion, and the draft was a giant event. And so I love that. My home league draft is tonight. It's nice. One of the best days of the year for me. So I'm excited, but that community part's the big part.
It is. I mean, to me, that's the foundation of this game. And I do think that, fantasy has a huge impact on the world because, like a lot of people, like you describe, I mean, like my home league, it's people from elementary school, junior high, high school,
really nice,
college, right? So it's I stay connected with these people, and people need connections in this world. Like you said, we're more connected than ever, but more disconnected as well in many ways. And so fantasy leagues, supersede the game, supersede the competition.
Right.
The cool things that I've seen in fantasy when it comes to stuff that happens outside of the league is pretty remarkable. So
Right.
it is a big deal, and I love it for you. Talk to me about that home league. I've held that home league trophy of yours. Like, talk to me about how special that league's been, and anything you guys have done, unique or fun over the years.
It's awesome. We switched like this year. I mean, it's like herding cats too. I mean, you never it's getting everybody to agree on. We finally switched. We went to a salary cap format 5 years ago, I guess, and that was fun. And then this past year we went to Superflex, this is going to be the first year Superflex, which means, and it's a limited keeper kind of thing. So salaries, some carry over, but then when you introduce Superflex in, that totally wrecks all the salaries for everything. And so it's like, it's just like part of the fun of it is hurting all those guys and getting that all together and getting us to a consensus. But we have it in my house. I've got a barn area here, and we've got a kind of a place to get together and do that, and it's a ton of fun. So it's I mean, I think entry fees like $50 or something. It's not for the money. It's just for hanging it over the others' heads. And well, Casey, our guy that's on the website holding the trophy, that actual trophy, he's won it several times. I've won it a couple of times, and it's tough. It's really tough, and especially with salary cap format, because anytime you start bidding on a player, it goes up, and it people think something that you don't maybe do or do not know, and it's fun. But yeah, it's a tough league. These guys are good.
Now, is that why you brought Drew Davenport on board, just to get some inside?
Kevin, I need all the help I can get, buddy. Yeah, so it's like I'm fighting for my life in these things.
I love it. Now, obviously, you all outside of fantasy, you have a passion for barbecue. Does your barbecue make it to these draft parties?
It's not tonight, but it has in the past, and that's it. Barbecue, as you may know, Kevin. Barbecue's not for smart people. Barbecue takes so long to do that it gets tougher every August. It seems like to squeeze in time for spending 12 hours out there cooking something. So we're doing pizza tonight, but yeah, I love barbecue. I'm as nerdy about barbecue as I am football, and it's it's funny. Partly, in some ways, it makes total sense because I love the same things about both. Barbecue is essentially a communal type food. It's not, you don't make barbecue on Tuesday night. Usually barbecue celebration. It's in history, it was always in the fall when you had the harvest and the pig picking and do this. And so I love it. And that's the same kind of idea of bringing people together and having community. But so yeah, but I love. We'll do another show on barbecue sometime. I can talk about that for a while.
It sounds good. What is your favorite thing to cook, though?
I like pork shoulder here in the South.
Okay.
I grew up in Texas, and I love brisket too. But I don't know. It's hard to beat a pulled pork sandwich.
That's true. Very, very, very true. But with football guys, I know that one big part of what inspired it was like that value-based drafting. Can you talk a little bit about that, like how that influenced the idea of creating this brand?
That came from baseball, Kevin. When I was back in the day, and I really don't keep up much with baseball anymore. But back in the day, it was a thing where catchers just didn't hit that well. It was like catchers were basically defensive players, and you needed them. You had actually have to start one. And it's a little bit like a tight end, I guess the equivalent maybe sometimes for football. But you could take a catcher that might hit 20 home runs, and he was a really great valuable player because there were 11 other catchers that got started each week. And some of them didn't hit well at all, and they would drag the thing. Whereas third baseman, again, don't yell at me if my numbers aren't accurate anymore, but back then, third baseman and first baseman were always big hitters, and so they were a dime a dozen. So you get you hit a first baseman to hit 30 home runs was not nearly as valuable as a catcher that could hit 20. And it was really just about supply and demand, and the demand would be the same on both positions. you start one catcher, one first baseman, but the supply of quality stats was way heavier on the first baseman. There were less supply of good hitting catchers, which drove the value up. And to me, it's just basic. The whole world works that way. But it seemed like football and baseball pretty much understood it. It felt like. But and the easiest way to see that is in a salary cap league, when you actually see, that Gary Carter was going for $48 and Jose Canseco was going for $35. It's like, why is that? And the difference was the demand on that position. So I carried that over to football, and it's like, and I put a name on it of value-based drafting, and it was really just about the concept is how it's not about the number of points you score, it's about the number of points you score relative to the other players at your position. So in today's words, Travis Kelce, or Sam Laporta, these guys that are kind of really separating themselves amongst other tight ends are more valuable. Their touchdowns are more valuable than a wide receiver who may score, the same number, but there's a whole bunch of them. And so that's really it. So it just puts that value. And we kind of get it. And everyone gets it somewhat intuitively, like with kickers. Kickers score a ton of points, but everyone drafts them way late simply because there's a bunch of them, and you can wait. You don't have to get one early. And I put a name to it and a formula around it. And that's what got me kind of started. That was sort of the plant my flag in this space. And then it went from there.
I love it. And obviously, the early days of Football Guys, at one point you bring in Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammy comes on board. Like, so many, incredible people have passed through and are still present, obviously, at Football Guys. Talk to me about how much joy has been for you to look around the fantasy sports industry and see the impact that a lot of people that have, contributed at Football Guys have had on the industry.
It's the best. I don't know if this is what happens when you get old, like I am, but you start seeing, it's you just start seeing people that you've been around and have had the opportunity and pleasure to work with, and then see them grow and develop and do great things. And ideally, we like to keep them here as we can, but some of that, it's like this is, the head coach can't be mad when his all-star offensive coordinator gets a head coaching job somewhere. So we love that. And that makes me super proud. If I've got one talent, if anything, I think it's identifying people. And when you name, and I think if you had to put why we've been successful into one thing, I think it's been that we've just been able to put together super great people and a really talented team. You're obviously part of that. But when you start naming off, I mean, I said the other day, I said, if I didn't own the company, I don't think I could write here anymore. I couldn't get a job here, but that's a good thing. I mean, we have such talented people creating content. And again, not just talented, content creators, but just people you want to hang out with. I mean, I'm a big believer on, if you're going to spend a ton of your time at work, make it a place where you like the people you're working with. Right. And
for sure,
we have a very low tolerance for, drama and that kind of stuff. And it's just a lot more fun to work with people you enjoy working with. And I think not just the fun part of it, it's not just a personal thing. I think you do much better work when you're around people that you like working with.
For sure. No, the Football Guys coaching tree is pretty incredible, and it's a tree because, like, I've heard so many people say, Sigmund Bloom was my influence, or the people that Matt Harmon has inspired because of going out on your own and doing your thing. Like, it's cool to see it, and there's always great love that goes back to Football Guys from people that have, again, crossed your path, which is a testament to you, right?
Thank you, buddy. That's nice. Yeah, it really is. It's fun. It's fun to see that, and I think it's really fun. What you just said, it's fun to see. It's almost like a grandfather, I guess. You see generations down, or you see guys like, Sigmund, I think of Sigmund still, he is a young man, but now Sigmund is the OG to a lot of these young guys, very young guys coming up, and he's pouring back down into them. Guys like Bob Harris. Bob got me started, but yet Bob is incredibly generous with his time, helping these younger folks out and pouring into them, giving them advice, giving them feedback. And it's just, and that's really how like a community, any community of, a village or a town or a company ought to work, right? Where the young people are learning from the old people, and the older ones are giving, advice to the new ones. But I always say this too, Kevin, it works both ways. It's the young people, and I think we've done a really good job of culture with that. And our newer folks, I say young people, the newer in the industry, are like bend over backwards respectful to the older guy. Bob Harris gets, and he deserves that. But yet in the same way, Bob is incredibly respectful and helping of the newer ones. It's like this virtuous circle that spirals up.
Yeah.
Because too many times you see it, and that the old guys, oh, the new guy, they don't know anything. These kids today or whatever, they dismiss them. And then the younger folks like, oh, they've lost, the old guys are out of touch. They don't know what's going on. And you have like a wall that goes up instead of back and forth. And I've been so happy with all of our people on both sides of that equation, how they've been so helpful to each other. It just makes everybody better.
Well, and that's, that brings up the newer generation. How much fun has that been to create and develop a new generation
It's
of
been
football guys,
It-
right?
and that was really conscious.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. That was a conscious thing. About 2020, maybe a little before, I started to see that, man, it seems like a lot of our folks are like my age, and like we're it was cool when we started. we're in our 25, 30. And then now as we're moving up, it's like, man, we don't have many people that are of a younger generation. And that was a conscious effort to go out. And it's like, we need to have, people, some different voices and people that see things a little bit differently. I mean, 30-year-olds today just see the world differently, and that they've grown up with technology has been native to them almost their whole life. They understand, I get it. I mean, I understand. I'll see things that we had somebody the other day that I needed something, and it was going to be a piece of graphic work, like an ad sheet or something. And I'm thinking, well, that's going to probably be a PowerPoint or some type of, that kind of thing. And Taylor was like, just make it on Canva. It'd take like, 30 seconds. And he pulls a template down, puts the thing in, and like, this beautiful piece of content in just a few seconds. But that's just how he just thinks that way. And that's awesome. So I need that.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun. It's been fun. It's been fun having folks, been able to give them an opportunity to spread their wings and create content. But it's also been fun for the ones that have been here a long time, because I think they've been energized. I can see it happening on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's not a, oh, look out, this guy's coming for your job thing. It's like, wow, no, look how passionate they are about this. Look what they're getting done. Why are we not doing that? And it's kind of pushed. I will say, I think, and that's sort of a lot of business is really just life stuff. I mean, I think a lot of it massively overlaps. And this is something that I try to do in my own life. You just stay curious about stuff. Say, don't dismiss. You don't have to like TikTok, but you better understand how it works, and you better understand, that it's a way that people communicate. It may not be how you want to communicate, but you better understand it. And the world's not all about you. And so you stay curious and what's happening, and incomplacent. Is that a word? I guess not complacent. Just like, don't be satisfied. That seems like that's always right. And that's every business, right? Or person too. You get a little bit of, you've made it for a couple of years, and it's kind of easy to sort of get, I don't need to try that hard anymore. I kind of got it. I'm doing, I coast a little bit, and you don't now. The opposite of that can be total grind culture, where you never, you never take a break. That's not good either. But I do think we've benefited by not being complacent.
Well, you clearly have a passion for people and a passion for mentoring people. Where does that come from? Where do you think that comes from for you?
That's a great question, Kevin. I've just seen it work. I've benefited from it massively myself, and maybe that's where it is. I was unbelievably blessed to have both a fantastic dad and a fantastic stepfather, and so I kind of saw, fathering from two separate personalities, and saw it done well. And then I've had other people, speak into my life, older people, older men that have just helped me over the years. And it just makes total sense. And so I've tried to, again, kind of pay it back or pay it forward, however you say that. And I just think it works. It's, and people want to think, oh, that's so nice that you do that, Joe, or that's like, like I'm doing something good. And maybe it is good. I get benefit from it though. I mean, it's like, it's not,
sure.
it's not a selfless thing totally.
Yeah.
It's, I benefit from it as well. And I think it all works out. And then, and people say, how can I pay you back? Well, I always say you pay this back by you doing this for somebody 10 years younger than you one day. And that person does it. And it just, again, it's that virtuous cycle that I think works well.
Yeah, and I think a common theme there is community, right? Like, you
Right.
talk about everyone's connected and giving back and, things come your way as well. It's just good to be a good person and you're doing a great job with
Well,
that.
thank you, buddy.
Uh,
You're kind, but I know, it's also, I think we talked about this not long ago too, you and I, but there's something about this. It's not a zero sum game. And all this, like, for you to win, for you and I to succeed, does not mean that the person next to us has to fail, right?
sure.
It's like this is a big industry. There are a lot of people that are consuming fantasy football content, and it's just easier to let us all, rise up and do this thing together. And it's just plus I think it's a more fun way to live.
For sure. And one thing is true is this fantasy sports community, this fantasy football community is unique and very special. There's so many great people in this. I mean, people are in a lot of different professions and they may have positive experiences, but in fantasy, like it's pretty spectacular. You think about events like the Fantasy Football Expo. You've attended for several years now. Talk to me about that experience and meeting industry colleagues and content creators and what that experience has been like for you heading to Canton every August.
You're right, Kevin. It, and it's funny. I don't know. I want to say it's a unique community, in how people get along. I'm not sure the world just doesn't do better with that now than it used to. And early on, it seemed like it was a little bit less collaborative, and there was maybe people were trying to stake their turf out a little more. But as you see, like, you see like in the beer industry with these breweries that will do a collaboration with another competing brewery, and they'll get together and make something fun. I think I don't know, maybe I'm read too much into that, but I like that the beer industry. They have sort of, to me, showed how it can be done and how it can be fun, and it could be, it could be something that is worthwhile. And I think the fantasy sports industry has done a good job of that in the last 10 years or so, of being a little more collaborative, and coming together. But it's fun. Like the Expo in Canton is a fun event. It is fun to see people in person. You see them online, even with video and stuff. It really used to be that way, 20 years ago, when you would just have an email, a communication with someone, and you hadn't seen video yet, and then you see them in person. But now, even with video, it's cool to finally meet people in person and hang out in person. And especially, someone my age who grew up kind of on both sides of the internet. I was an adult, when before the internet came about, and that was all we used to have. And it's been fun to have that. It's fun to break down. We talked about, a beautiful part of the internet is that it kind of obliterates geography, right? It's like, you live in Seattle, I live in Tennessee. 30 years ago, we probably wouldn't have connected. There wouldn't have been a way for us to connect. Well, now, when outside, it used to be you just talked about whatever you were into with your neighbors or your local people at your bar or your club or your church or whatever it may be. Well, now your social network literally can be people all over the world. And so no matter how, I mean, fantasy football is a popular thing, but you could be into, pretty niche, types of content, and still find a pretty broad community out there that will want to talk about it. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do that. It's fun to be in a place. A lot of times, you probably have this, is a lot of us will be at the expo or any other kind of conference like that. And even in our day-to-day real life, we don't run into people that do the same stuff we do. I mean, we're fortunate to have, a really fun, kind of unique job, but I don't get to talk to a lot of people in my regular daily life about YouTube thumbnails, or what's working on podcast, or how, that kind of thing. And so it's nice to get together with kind of some like-minded people in a big group. And like I say, it's just a really good group of people as well.
Yeah, it's such a surreal experience because you're right. I mean, you got people from every corner of the country,
Yeah.
very different background you can imagine, but there's that
Right.
common love of fantasy, but it also connects people. There's people I've seen so many cool relationships develop, professional, personal
Yeah.
relationships. And it's just such a special event. And like I said, there's people from
I think that's where
every
you and I met,
fantasy.
right? Didn't we
Yeah,
meet
yeah.
there? Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
It
And
certainly, and it was,
so,
and it's just, yeah, it's just great opportunity. Now you've discovered a lot of talent at the expo, right? You've met a lot of people that have,
mhm,
come to football guys.
mhm.
What advice do you have for people that are attending these types of events, and how do they get connected with people that can influence their professional path?
That's a great question. And we were talking about stay tuned, because I think we've got more content in the future coming on that, of like just how to get started in the industry. And that was one of our talks we did at the expo, was about that. It can be challenging, because it's weird to kind of butt up into, for most. Now, some people don't have a problem with that in their personality, but most people are not super comfortable, just like, especially if they're not a known person and the person they're trying to meet is more established or known, to just insert yourself right into that. I would say, do your best to get over that. Do your best, even if, and they know, I mean, trust me, I get nervous meeting people, and I've been doing this a long time. So everybody deals with that in some sort. And most people, even when they're on, the receiving, when they're being, someone is coming up to them, they understand you're nervous. They understand, if you're just getting started in this, that you might be a little nervous about it. So it's not as big a deal as you've probably built it up into your mind. With that said, use common sense. Don't interrupt somebody, or don't, blurt in and be rude, or any of that. But I would say the answer, the bigger picture answer, Kevin, is figure out a way that you can be useful. Like, what are you doing? It's not just like, hey, I want to meet you and you need to give me a job. That everyone is saying that. What catches my attention is someone that can say, hey, pleasure to meet you. Here's what I can bring to this. Here's what I can add. And that's what I'm looking for. So, for the person, it becomes a thing of like, oh, maybe think about that. What can I add? What am I doing on this? And what's my ability? What am I good at? We talked about that at the expo talk. Like, find the things that you're good at, one that you like doing, and then third, like, what does the world need? And hopefully wherever that overlap is really what you need to lean into. I mean, I would love to be an NFL quarterback, but that's not in the cards, for what I'm able to do. So find those things. And some people are really good at something, but they don't really like it that much. And
Sure.
that's a thing too. So find those things and then the last one, like I said, what is useful to the world? What is the thing that the world needs? And it doesn't have to be dramatic. The world might need someone doing fantasy football content that makes them laugh a little bit. Maybe that's all it is. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be any kind of earth, shaking thing. But find those, get your pitch down. When, if you've got, I mean, if there's a new content creator that's want to start a podcast and they see Kevin Murray walking around, they need to come in and say, hey, here's what I can do for you, Kevin. Here's how I can, or here's what I made, or be clear on the ask. It may not be anything at all you can do for you. Maybe you just like, could you help me for a thing?
Sure.
What's your favorite piece of advice? But have it, be it almost like, if you're going to come with that, come with a real live ask of being specific, just something like that. I mean, that's always a good one. If you could go back 15 years, what would you tell someone just starting in the industry? And
Yeah.
those are great things to ask.
Yeah, that's great advice. I will say that, yeah, with my experience too. I was standing there. I was at a booth. We had a booth, like it was 2001, and I saw you standing kind of a little bit off to the side, and it's true. You got to sometimes take advantage of those opportunities. And so I just went up to you and said, hey, introduced myself, kind of
Absolutely.
shared some of my passion for fantasy commissioner content and that kind of stuff. And it was a natural conversation. And I think that that's a great point. Like you said, just, how, share your passion with others, look for those opportunities. Because like I've witnessed, throughout the expo over the years, is I've seen so many cool relationships formed by just, right moment, right time, but also people stepping outside of their comfort zone and making things happen. I think
Well, take that
that's great
shot,
advice.
right? And it's not,
Yeah.
if it does, if the person is mean to you or whatever, it's like, okay, I mean, it's not like it's a big loss, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but I guarantee you'll not meet that person if you don't introduce yourself, right? I
for
mean,
sure.
the only thing for certain is nothing will happen if you don't do anything. You got to,
Exactly.
people say, well, you're lucky. And I'm like, I don't know. I consciously kind of work as hard as I can on increasing my surface area for luck
Yeah.
and for good things. And the longer
Yeah.
you do that, I mean, I have things, Kevin, now that just seem like they fall into my lap. And it's not, well, that's just luck. Well, kind of, but it's also maybe that's something that's doing the right thing maybe
Yeah.
years ago for something. And so, yeah, it does pay. I'll say this, you and I have a similar opinion on this, I think, is that play the long game. Don't
Yeah.
make short-term decisions. The business world today has changed so much. It seems like now that, people don't think about 100-year business anymore, starting
Yeah.
something and running it for a long time. It's all about get a bunch of money from VCs or investors, build it up. Doesn't matter if it makes any money, and then flip it and sell it for something big and then churn it. And when you do that, you make short-term decisions because you're
Yeah.
not going to be there that long. And that obviously that works for in a lot of folks. We've just never done it that way. We've always gone at it and made decisions as if that I was going to have to be the one to deal with it 5 years later. And so, and that changes your decision, process sometimes.
For sure.
And so like that. Another thing you asked me about lessons. The one thing I'll say is don't sell yourself short on it's easy to look at some of the folks out there doing things and think, oh, I could never get to there, or I can't, they've got it all together. They've got some kind of special ability that I don't have. And I would say you don't know that yet. Get out there and give it your best effort. I was so proud of you and am proud of you for the FSGA awards you won
Oh.
on your podcast. You were going up, I mean, the content, the category was what it was, but it was basically a David and Goliath thing, going up some super well-known, very well-funded, resourced companies. And for you to come back with your the award you won there is incredible. And it's a testament to the democratization of talent. And I call that's the beauty of the internet. It used to be, there would be no way 30 years ago that someone could have your reach of an audience being heard and seen unless you went to the right school and got the right journalism degree or the broadcasting degree, or you had a relative that worked at ESPN, or you had somebody that had you sort of some special door that you could get in. Now with a podcast, you're living proof of this. You just go out and if you do it well, work hard, make great content, that gets traction. So congratulations. I should be the one interviewing you. You're the one that ought
No,
to be
come
telling
on.
people how to get going in this. You're the picture of it.
Oh,
But
no, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that a ton. I just think that, the greatest thing for me with this show is that it's about the guests, right? It's about, I mean, we have, like I said, this industry is amazing, the community is amazing, and everybody has a different story and a different path towards, the
mhm.
success that they've found. And I think again the expo is a great place for opportunity to present. And I
Yeah.
think that you've done a great job finding talent there. uh, when it comes to the award for this podcast, yeah, I mean, to this show, it was definitely something I was shocked by, but it was fun
I
because
wasn't. Talent
yeah.
rises, buddy. Good. I'm proud of you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, obviously, when it comes to football guys, one cool thing you guys do is the newsletter.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that for people that aren't subscribed? Whenever I talk to people that maybe in my league, where I'm like, you're not subscribed to Football Guys newsletter. Talk about the newsletter and the reach that's had and the impact that's had on the brand.
It's our primary way that we communicate with a customer, Kevin. And the thing on that is it's twofold. We'll save folks time, almost literally, in case, I can think maybe a handful of times when it wasn't. We're not breaking stories. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not the one, finding out the scoop on the latest story. We have our industry people that can do that. What we'll do is scour all the news sources, take the 300 stories that happened today and distill them down to here's the 5 to 15 stories that you really need to know about. So in that sense, we're a time machine, right? We'll spend 40 hours, or say not, maybe not 40 on a day, but we'll spend 10 hours that day sorting through all the stories and then pulling in what's really important. And we partner with USA Today on that. They do a fantastic job. We'll summarize. Here's the story. CeeDee Lamb signed his new contract. Here's the link to the newspaper post or the Adam Schefter post and the details on it on the network. And then so that's the base. And we always give a link to the actual source. So if you want to get more detail, you can go there. But then the value that we add. So one, that's the time save. We'll pick out the ones that are important, curate it for you. But then the other thing that we'll add is we'll put our view on it. Okay, this is not just, very often the real impact of the story is not just about the player, it's about the ripple effects, right? I mean, CeeDee Lamb story CeeDee Lamb story is just about as much about Dak Prescott as anything, right? So it's like, how does this football being such an interrelated game where everyone's interdependent? Very often the story is really about other things. So we'll have us curate the story and then give our view on it. That's primarily it. We've been doing it now for this is our 25th year, which seems crazy. And it used to be that I wrote every word of it at first, and now fortunately we've got, again, people better than me that'll do that. But we'll have Bob Harris and Cecil Lamy and Sigmund Bloom that will help us with that, and then I'll assemble it and sort it and organize it, and then rarely will I edit too much or add to what they've got. Those guys are, I mean, they just live and breathe this, so they're fantastic. But I wanted to make sure it's got our kind of approval when it goes out, and it's written in a safe for work style. No one, you're not ever going to get in trouble if your boss were to see you, or anything inappropriate. They may not want you doing fantasy football work. I don't know, but
they might ask for fantasy.
They might ask for advice, right? That's right. That's the shark way to get the promotion at work, right? Is help your boss with their team. But so that's been it, and it's a large audience now. It goes out now. We're a little bit over 700,000 people each day that gets sent to, and but again, it's like anything else. You have to bring value. No one listens. They don't care about my, or at least this audience wouldn't care about my opinion on barbecue. They like, and we make it a little personal. I mean, it'll be a little bit that each one, comes from me. And so I'll write the introduction and the flavor of it. But then, I try, I'll have, you want a little bit of personal, but they're interested in this about fantasy football, right? They're not interested too much in my personal life. So you keep it of where it brings value for them. That's the thing. I mean, I'm useful to them because I bring them value on the news there. It's not, and I've always said it's different. I guess like entertainment people or musicians or comedians or whatever, they might be valuable for different reasons. We are very well aware that our value is helping that person win their league. So we try to bring them all we can. And as Bob Harris likes to say, fantasy news drives fantasy value. So what happens in the news very often has an effect on the value of the player.
For sure. Well, you're right. I mean, it is a team effort. I've seen it firsthand. The Football Guys team's incredible, and everything that Football Guys creates and produces is top notch. And so, a little shout out to the team at Football Guys. Anything you want to say, and then also just a little more gratitude when it comes to your family. Like, obviously your family had a huge impact on you, and big part of Football Guys as we know it. So here's your chance to kind of say a few words to the team.
Well, you get me choked up on this, Kevin, but it really is. It's just it's a pleasure. I mean, it's a pleasure working with the folks we do. and have the opportunity to work with you being one of them. But it's a team thing. It really is. That's not. I know that can sound like, oh, I'm being just humble. That's not being humble. That's the legit truth. I mean, it's a team effort, and we're able to do what we do because we have a bunch of really great folks doing it. And it's work. I mean, it's a lot of work. August especially is insane. And so it's a fun topic, but it's also work you have to do to make it happen. But I've always viewed everything we do from like in the entire aspect of it, from the way you pay your bills to the way you do handle customer service, to the way you do the podcast content, to the way you do the written content, to the way you do the back end, infrastructure of the payment processing. All that is equal. All that comes together. It's not that different than a football team. Yeah. The Sigmund Bloom, I mean, Sig is maybe the most visible, and he's our quarterback and he gets the credit and all this. But the truth is there's a ton of people behind the scenes doing all kinds, and Sig will be the first one to say that. So I think it's putting the value on the entire organization. And then just as you said, I'm just grateful for it. It's super fun. I pinch myself sometimes that I get to do what I get to do for a job. And it's just a fun thing. But I would say to your other point about other folks, there's opportunity out there for others too. If you've got listeners that are looking for this, the majority of it is not everyone. The industry is still a relatively small industry, but there's a ton of opportunity for people that contribute. They maybe have a regular job that does what they're doing, and they're able to make content and make a few $1,000s a year writing, creating content on the side for something. There's a lot of opportunity out there. So don't think you can't do it. Get out there, give it your best shot. And like with asking, introducing yourself to the person, it doesn't cost anything relatively. It's not like you have to go out and buy some kind of fancy equipment to be able to produce content. If you have a laptop or a computer, you can basically do most all of what you need to do.
For sure. Now, Joe, it was an honor to have you on here. Such a joy to have this conversation. Anything else you want to share before we close things out?
Just keep doing what you're doing, buddy. I'd be encouraged. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the time. Thanks for making time for me.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it again. Can you tell the listeners, viewers, where to find you and where to find Football Guys?
At footballguys.com. That's almost everything stems right out of our website there. So you can find everything you need right there, and you can sign up. The easiest way to get introduced to our content, the free email update that we talked about. There's a sign up button right there in the menu at the top, and just get on that, and we'll start sending content each day, and you can kind of judge for yourself if you think it's something that's worthwhile, and we just hope you'll join us.
There we go. Joe Bryant, everybody. I can't wait to see what's next for you and for Football Guys in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you, buddy. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.